The hands really are very important. And one of the things that we remember is that with a child's hands are different to an adult's hands. Now, remember, we have all of the carpal bones of our hands. We talked about this earlier. Those carpal bones don't fully develop until we're teenagers. And they start to develop in children probably around the age of 5 or 6, in girls around 5, and in boys around 6. Now, one of the joys of having children is the fractures, broken bones. Child falls on outstretched hand, maybe, what was it, Max?
Roller skating.
Yeah. And so Max recently fractured his hand. So Maxie, can you just show? As you can see, we've taken the tape off. Now, he has fractured the scaphoid bone. Now, the scaphoid bone is a really important bone for stabilising your hands. Very common break in adults as well. Older people, not just your grandparents, but it's called a fall on outstretched hand or a fish. You drop, you put your arm out, and the scaphoid bone is the one that's often broken. It will hit in, and it will often go up and break the radial bone as well. Not a good outcome. Now, what you can see with Max is, show them that your hand. When, remember, we talked about the soup bowl? Yeah. So when Max turns his hand like that, yeah, it's not nice, is it, darling? Do it again. Sorry. So he knows that when we go to supination, it causes a fair bit of pain. And that's because as he does that, the carpal bones roll on top of each other. And he's fractured just a little corner of that bone in his fall. Now, because it's only a small fracture, we don't have to put him in a cast. But often with older people, you will have to put them in a cast because the bones are fully formed, and so there's not a lot of space there. What will happen is, in a child's hand, there's a lot of space there that can facilitate that movement. And it means that when there's a fracture, it's very rarely a big problem. They will break other bones, and the radial bone is a big one. Max was lucky. Now, what happens though is when Max first breaks it, you can see he's got tape marks that needs to be retaped, doesn't it? To stop him moving it too much. For him, show the other movement pattern that was problematic. Yeah. Ooh. Okay, good. That's all right. Don't do any more of that. So in other words, the perfect handwriting. It's a shame it was troubling you at school, darling, wasn't it? So once Max is able to move his hands a bit, and we know that the bone is starting to heal, we need to introduce exercises for supination. Remember, drink the soup, flexion and extension, and abduction. One of my favourite exercises to introduce is called the hammer exercise. Okay, now what this means is, normally you get a hammer, you know, the big old-fashioned hammers, and you will have the head of the hammer at the top here, and at first you just hold here. So darling, we'll do it on your non-broken hand, okay? So he's going to hold really close to the load, and he's just going to move his hand like this, back and forward, back and forward. Is that okay? Try not to hit me. And we're just going to build that strength along here, okay, and keep mobility. As you get stronger, you move it further and further away from the head of the hammer, in other words, increasing the load. Hopefully by the end of the rehab, and they can do this at home, you're right down at the bottom of the ladder and they're hanging the pictures up for you, okay? Now, you right, darling? Can you add this as an exercise? So what we might also do is add an exercise where he holds the thumb out. Now, if you stand on the side there, just here, so they can see your lovely glitter stick. Okay, now the idea is that as Max does this, stand tall, look up, hold that there, and you're wanting to keep the stick parallel to the floor. Ideally for 30 to 40 seconds. You're not playing golf. Okay, so holding it there, keeping it parallel to the floor. It's actually kind of an effort. Now, the longer the stick, the harder it's going to be. So eventually though, Max will start at the very end, but you might start him in the middle, so there's not much for him to actually hold up.